Well, Charlie, we're back for step 2, which says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So let's break that one down.
Okay, so we've got the words that we're going through word by word to define them. And the first word of that is came, right? So we know that's a past tense word. So it sort of indicated to me that I didn't have to get it all just yet, because I wasn't, like we talked about the first step, I really wasn't believing all this stuff. And that was okay. And you still don't have to believe it or like it. But that this is telling me that at some time, this belief that will happen. I came to believe. And so what is believe? It says to accept trustfully and on faith, to have firm conviction as to the reality or goodness of something, to hold an opinion, to suppose, and to think. So, came to believe. So what am I going to believe here? That a power. Now we looked at the word powerless in our first step, which means no capacity to act. But what does the word power mean? I'm just going to read the definition for you. Power means possession of ability to wield force, permissive authority, or substantial influence. One who possesses the ability to act or produce an effect. So if I believe that there's something that can produce an effect for me over this addiction that I have, greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So I looked at that. It took me a long time to realize that what they were telling me was that I wasn't very sane. And I'm like, me? Like, I think y'all are crazy, not me. So that sanity word, what does that mean? Well, there's a definition for insanity in the Big Book of AA, and it talks about how that I'll just read it to you. It's on page XXBI of the Big Book. It says, men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. But again, you can substitute that for your sex addiction or your love addiction. The effect that it produces is what you're looking for. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the truth from the false. Mm-hmm. And so I know that I've seen that in my life, my family, everywhere in my practice, that it's like the things that people come in that are believing are false, but they don't understand that yet or know that yet. So you have to have somebody that can help point that out. And the way you learn to do that is by working this step and answering some of these questions. So again, this power that's greater than ourselves can restore us. So it's sort of like saying, okay, I need restoration, or I need to be restored, and that means to put back into existence or to renew. So I needed renewing. I needed to be born again, if you will, in my spirit. And, religion talks about that. People get baptized or they get taken in, or that, there's all kinds of religious terms for it. But I think in this context, it means that I needed to renew myself, period, with this higher power. And that there is something greater than me that can help restore me to my sanity. Because the other definition of insanity we have is, that one, doing the same thing and expecting the result to be different.
Yeah.
And I had that also, but I also had another kind of insanity, which was I would do the same thing knowing it wasn't going to turn out right, but I would do it anyway. I always say back in the day when I used to smoke, addicts can never get enough of what they don't want. I must have smoked 1 million cigarettes I didn't want, but then I would put one out and light another one. It's like, this tastes horrible. I don't really want it. It's not doing it. I light another one. So that's that, thing, like when you look, it's like, yes, I was insane. There's a part of insanity there for me to continue to do a behavior or a thought that's making my life miserable, but I didn't know any other way to do it. So I just did it again and again, and that sets up that powerlessness for us. So the great thing is that you don't have to understand or have a higher power or a concept of a higher power when you get here. That's the good news. And on page 10, because in Bill Wilson's story of the Big Book, he talked about how he struggled with that. Even though he'd been going to church all his life, he struggled with the higher power. So there's a little paragraph that I found on the bottom of page 10, and I'll read it to you, and it helped me so much. And it says, so hopefully it'll help somebody else. It says, despite contrary indications, I had little doubt that a mighty purpose and rhythm underlay it all in the universe. How could there be so much of precise, immutable law and no intelligence? I simply, and this is the part that's important, I simply had to believe in a spirit of the universe who knew neither time nor limitation. That's it. It's that simple. So I thought, okay, I have no idea what that might be, but I'll just call it God, good orderly direction, and that's what I started with, was God is truth, God is love, God is good orderly direction. God is something that my life sure didn't look like any of those things. Like, it wasn't very loving, it wasn't very truthful, and it didn't have any good direction when I came into the program. So I started with that, just believing that there's something, I don't know what, some days I still don't, but I just have to ask myself, either God is everything or he's nothing. And I say, okay, he's everything. Start all over again. You can start over all the time if you need to. It's okay. So that second step really helped me to believe that, I had some things to look at and some things to work on in my life, that I wasn't quite as sane or wonderful or logical or perfect as I thought I was. Because over here, my life's falling apart. But over here, I kept thinking, oh, everything's great. I'm okay. So looking at this step, it took me a while to work this step, because to believe that there was something that could help me through this. There are some questions that I've had. What is sanity? Well, it's soundness and health of mind. It's kind of the same definition as sobriety. Sobriety means soundness of mind. It doesn't mean that you're just not acting out or you're just not drinking or using drugs. It means soundness of mind. And I don't think I had very much of that, although I thought I did. So that was my, insanity there. So looking at the promises of the program, we read the promises a lot of times in meetings. And I know the promises in SA and SAA and SLAA and all those programs, they have promises. And the promises, I looked at them, although I didn't believe they would happen for me, were really good to look at to get me out of that insane thinking, to say, all right, this is something I'm going to work toward. This could possibly happen for me. And of course, I've experienced all the wonderful promises that were there. So finding a power greater than me was really my search for about the first 3 steps. And however that happens for you, it's okay. It doesn't have to be in order. You don't have to do it the way we're saying here, but to work these steps in your life really helps to open this stuff up so you can understand it. And so I wrote down, list what you would like to become. And that was a really important exercise for me, because all this thinking that I did all the time that was taking up all the space in my head, causing this insanity I had, I didn't really know what I wanted for myself. I really knew what I wanted for other people. I wanted other people to behave and act in a certain way so I would be happy, right? And I had to turn that around and realize that I'm the only one I can change. I'm the only one that can make a difference. And I had to start meaning that was enough for me, that if I changed, that's all that needed to change for me, is that I'm different. And so when I started doing that, the actual other people started looking different. And I kept thinking, is that because I'm working the steps, or did they get different, or, whatever. And it might've been a little of both, because we all have an effect on each other. So, and then I had to list what insanity I wanted out of my life and what sanity I wanted in my life. And that really helped to open that up, to say, okay, these things are insane that I've been doing. What did I want then? Looking at the 2 things that I wanted, and list my obsessions. And I'll give you my little definition of obsession. It's one thought that's repeated over and over again. And then, of course, the compulsion part is when you act on it. So obsessive compulsive, I think, is part of most addicts' brains. We think and think and think about something, and then we act on it, and then our lives become unmanageable again. So looking at the insanity of that in this step, and realizing that if the ABC says we can't do it by ourselves. We can't do it with another human. We have to have help from a power greater than ourselves. So that helps that again too. And so answering this question, that can you recall a time in your life when a power greater than yourself did for you what you could not do? And somebody told me one day to look at the things in my life that you can't make with hands. Like, so that really brought a different aspect to this power greater than me too. It's like, no, actually I can arrange flowers, but I can't make a flower.
Right.
You know, I can put them all in my house and make them smell good and look good, but I can't actually make that flower with my hands. And that really helped me to realize there's some intelligence and something operating in the universe that you can put a seed in the ground, water it, sit it outside, and it becomes a flower. I don't know how to do that. So there is something that I thought could help me. If it can make a flower, it could help me get better. You know, that, I mean, it's simplistic, but those are just my thoughts, how that worked. So, and then learning about the difference between gratitude and thankfulness. And so I had to learn how to make a gratitude list every day. I know Oprah came out with that years ago, you know, it's like, but I've been doing that for years. It's like claiming, writing down, making a list, talking to other people. I'm so grateful for, I'm grateful for, and then writing 3 or 4 things down at night before I went to bed about what I'm grateful for. And of course, in the program, when I would talk to people, I would be like, well, I'm not grateful for having to come here every day. You know, I'm not grateful because I had to get to know you particularly. And they would be just like, well, just write it down, just be grateful for it. And so I learned by, again, doing what I was asked to do, not having to believe it, not having to like it, just doing it really helped me to see that I was grateful for being there. I was grateful for having to do those exercises and know those people and come to believe and learn things I didn't know about that were bigger than me. And so people ask me that all the time, what's the difference between gratitude and thankfulness? And I it's hard to define that, but for me, what I learned, because many years ago I had this other horrible disease called cancer that I had a lot of repercussions from, and I had a lot of surgery and a lot of procedures, and so they told me I had to go home and be grateful for that, and I'm like, what? I'm not grateful for that. But I learned that now I am, because I went through that for a reason, and I got better for a reason. I'm still alive for a reason, and thankfulness to me is like asking for something or praying for something. And then when you get it, what happens? We're like little kids. Oh, goody, I got what I asked for. And I call that magic God. You know, like, no, God's not a unicorn or
a vending machine. Yes.
Yeah, vending machine. You can just put the prayer in, pull the thing, and oh, goody, I got it. And that does happen sometimes. You do get what you ask for or what you want. And of course, you're thankful. But gratitude is different. It's an attitude. It's like saying, even though I went through this crap and this horror story of things in my life, they're not turning out like I want them. I am grateful because I learned something from surviving from all that. But learning how to live and thrive and get out of survive is very vital too. So this helps you to get out of your survival mode and get into thrive mode. When you just own up to your gratitude about, because we're all, like I said before, the sum total of every experience we've had. That's what makes us strong and good and better, is going through adversity. It's doesn't seem like that when you're going through it. And of course, we don't ask for that, and we're not thankful for it, but we have gratitude for having lived through that and for having gone through these experiences. And I guess we're just not supposed to have all the answers, are we? I mean, I don't know why my son died when he was 39, why that happened to me, because it wasn't about me. It was his path with his higher power. And I can accept that today and be okay with that. Do I like it? No, I don't have to like it to accept it, you see? So, but that was his walk in life, and mine is mine, and I'm still walking mine. And I just want to have it be the best walk I know how to be today. So following these steps, staying close to my higher power, is what I've learned got me out of that insanity, because I can go back to that insanity in a flash, in a heartbeat, anytime. And being able to know that I have a God that is with me all the time, that loves me and understands that really helps me, you know. So talking about the solution of this program, not the problem. We all know what the problem is. The problem was me. That's what I had to get. The problem. We used to have these stickers that we would give out, and I had it on my makeup mirror for years, and it said, little sticker that says, "You are looking at the problem." I love those stickers. I should get some more, because absolutely every time I look in the mirror, I'm looking at the problem. I thought the problem was the drinking, or the bad husband, or the circumstance that I didn't like for the day, or the fact that my bank account wasn't the way I liked it, or whatever. But that's not the problem. That's a symptom of the problem. But the problem was me and how I handled all that. You see? So, yeah, I learned that in AA, that alcohol was a symptom of my problem. I'm the problem, and I have the addict brain that goes with whatever I put in my body, mind, and spirit. I have to deal with that. So these steps give me a way out of that, a way to a better life and a better belonging and believing that I can hold on to. So never fear, people. If you don't have a higher power yet, it's okay. Just do the work. Just do it, and it you know, sooner or later it will come up for you. Like you said, take a deep breath and just keep working. So I think the principles that are involved with step 2 are hope, because we do have hope for the future. If we keep working at this, something will happen. Open-mindedness is a principle that's practiced in the second step. And that was a big one for me, especially when you think you know everything, and then you find out you have to be more open-minded, and other people just might have a better way or a different way that you haven't looked at, and you can look at that. We have a very political world these days, don't we? Of like,
right.
Sort of like this way or that way, and there's nothing in between. It's, you got to believe this or believe that, and it's really kind of sad when I see that, because there's some good, like the book says, there's some good in the worst of us, and there's a little bit of bad in the best of us. So we have to be willing to be open-minded. And faith is a big spiritual principle practiced in this. So just continue to do your work and have faith that there is something bigger than you, and it's trying to help you, and it's trying to find you. You know, you're seeking it, and it's seeking you. And sooner or later, enough of these steps, you will find that power, and that power will find you in the way you can comprehend it. And then oneness. And I love the spiritual principle of oneness, because that oneness, when I thought about that I am one with my higher power, there's always me. Part of me is God. There's that oneness that I always participate in when I am acknowledging that there's a power greater than me, because God lives within, not without. So anything you can think of on the second step that might be helpful to talk about?
Well, I love the gratitude. I had to do the gratitude list as well. And I think I was less of a pistol when I joined the program, because I was so desperate. Like, I wasn't going, I don't like you. I was like, I just wanted it so badly. But the thing at the end of the day, every day, you know, I somehow managed to get to the end of the day sober. And like, that could be on my list every single day.
Yes.
It's shocking to me that I actually accomplished that, you know, through working the steps and things like that. But, you know, I was so grateful for that. And what I've continued to find in my journey is that gratitude reframes. If I'm caught in negative, if I can think of something to be grateful for, it reframes it for me. I was shocked that and fairly early on, I got to the point where I could say I'm grateful to be an addict, because I didn't have the recipe for living a good life. And these steps gave me what I was missing. So for me, it was just good living. And when you're talking about God being good, orderly direction, I didn't have good, orderly direction. That was why I was chaos and my life was unmanageable, as we talked about in step 1. So for me to engage in this process gave me a recipe for living a life successful. And, you know, I was talking to my husband last night, and I was sharing something, and I swear we've been married a long time, but, you know, well, this is just how my brain thinks. And I think he still kind of goes, oh, that's so off. But I said, but I have these tools to use so that when I go, that's my first thought, that's the story I'm telling myself, but I can apply these tools and these principles so that I can look at it differently with a lens that is sane instead of insane, you know?
Exactly.
But it was because I was willing, like you talked about, I was willing to do what people told me. And for me too, all the promises have come true, all of them, you know. I've got huge gratitude for that. And I was willing to believe, like the faith you talked about, I was willing to believe that when people said, these can come true for you, the hope that you said, I did. I had hope that, you know, they're telling me that this could happen for me. And I was like, wow, yeah, I know. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm going to hang on to that thread of hope that if I do what these people are telling me to do, that could happen for me too. And it did. It did. Yeah.
That's beautiful, Tammy. Thank you for adding that. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I had a thought about a client I had many years ago as a young man who used to, he was an anonymous sex addict, we called him, where he would just go around and drive around and pick up people to have sex with. And he said he couldn't stop, you know, and so we were trying to get him to do the second step and to come to believe that there is a power in his life that loves him and wants to help him if he would just reach out. So I know, like you talked about the gratitude of every night when you just say, oh, I got through the day and I'm still sober. Oh my gosh, you know, it's like, thank you. So 2 prayers that are really big prayers are please in the morning and thank you at night.
Right.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
And then I remember this guy telling me once that he was, you know, driving in his car and he was driving around to get he said, for some reason, I turned around and I went home. And I said, is there any possible way you could think that might have been your higher power directing you to go home? And, you know, you had thought, I've got to go home. I don't want to do this. And he was like, oh my God, maybe that is true. You know, maybe there is a God and maybe he was helping me. So I said, well, did you ask for help that morning? He said, yeah, I did what you told me. I said the prayer. And next we're going to talk about the 3rd step. So I'm going to talk about the 3rd step prayer, but that's the prayer he was saying. And I said, and you think it's a coincidence that you just turned around and you didn't act out? And he said, yeah, maybe not. It's like, yeah, maybe you're getting restored back to sanity, so you don't have to act out this craziness in your life that makes your life miserable and unmanageable. So thank you for that, Timmy.
Okay, so I think that's a great wrap up for step 2. So continue the journey with us. We'll be on to step 3.